you would just bring a person, your loved one anywhere without really knowing what to look for in a place.
Absolutely. No, when my mom was initially staying at my house, and I would go to work and she was fine at my home, and she had things that she did. She'd be on her computer and reading and doing puzzles, and she kept herself occupied. But I started noticing over time that she was doing less. And mostly as I checked on her on my security camera, she was sitting in her chair. I could hear the TV in the background, but she was just kind of sitting there for hours at a time, not really doing anything. So she wasn't really getting any stimulation or activity. So we were debating what to do, and then we had an incident where she woke up during the night, walked out of the house at 3 o'clock in the morning and fell and laid on the driveway for 5 hours before I found her. And she ended up hospitalized, and I realized it was no longer safe for her to stay home alone, but I was trying to figure out options. And as a nurse, I knew there was the option for home care, but I also used to be a nurse's aide many years ago, so I know you can get really good care, or you can get someone who just sits on their cell phone, and they're a physical presence, but they're not really interacting or doing anything. So I talked to her PCM. They had a case manager call me to try to look at options. And so I actually called a number of senior centers around town, but most of the senior centers were geared towards active seniors, like pickleball tournaments. And I said, my mom's not gonna play pickleball. So I started checking into adult day centers. I kind of changed my Google search terms. And I found most of them are geared towards adults with intellectual disability, which nothing wrong with that population, but that's not my mother. My mother is not geared towards people with Down syndrome or cerebral palsy in terms of what she needed. So I kept searching and I found ClearDay, and I scoured the entire website to see exactly what their services were. And what I really liked, it was geared towards people with dementia, and they mentioned having activities focused on dementia care. So I called and did a phone interview with Jake and was very impressed on the phone, and he offered to have me come in and do a tour and said, bring my mom. So we came in for what I thought would be an hour tour, and we were here 4 hours. And while I was in talking to Jake about the details of the program, they just moved my mom right on into the services. With the activities, I look up, they're serving her lunch, and I was like, oh, I didn't expect y'all to feed her. But they provided her lunch, they included her in all the activities, so we stayed for 4 hours as Jake went over all the options in the program and the activities that they do. And so I asked if we could do a trial. There was 3 days left that week. I said, can we come 3 days in a row and see if mom likes it? And they said yes. And on Friday, mom said, I want to go back there. And I said, well, do you want to go 5 days a week, or do you want to go part-time? And she said, well, let's try all next week. So we did the entire week, and she loved it. And I was really happy because the location is perfect. I can drop her off in the morning on my way to work. And they do provide breakfast if she would like to have it here, but my mom wants to eat at home, so I feed her, and then I bring her here, and then I head into work, and then on my way home I swing back in and I pick her up. But one thing I have found, they do a lot of activities that I knew as a nurse were geared towards improving brain function. So they have anything from coloring to word puzzles and games. And when they play movies, it's not necessarily current movies, it's old movies that stimulate memory. They do trivia questions that stimulate memories. I like that they did exercises. So every morning they do some kind of like chair yoga or whatever stretching, which was great because my mom did yoga for 40 years, so she enjoys getting back into the yoga. And then they started doing physical activities, so my mom would come home and tell me they're playing chair volleyball, but it brought back her competitive spirit from when she used to play volleyball, so she keeps telling me how she's spiking the ball. Instead of playing nice, she's spiking. But they do physical activities, and then they do trivia, and she's gotten to meet other people and have the socialization and activities. So since she's been coming here, she has not sundowned in 2 months, which has been amazing. She's happy to be here. And one thing that I noticed on the tour that I'm now seeing my mom do is when I took the tour, they let me talk to other clients. And I talked to probably 4 or 5 clients, and I'd asked them, how often they come or what if they enjoy it. And one thing I noted as a nurse is patients didn't say, I have to come, or my family brings me here, or I have to come here to be watched. Every single person said, I get to come 3 days a week, or I get to come 5 days a week. So they seemed to find that more of a privilege, and they all enjoyed it. And I'm now finding my mom doing the same thing. She asks every weekend, do I get to go back to that place again on Monday? And I said, well, do you want to? She said, yes, I do. And I said, okay, do you want to keep staying 5 days a week? And she said, yes. And there was one weekend she came up to me and she was just like, okay, I'm really stressed. And I said, what's the matter? And she said, I want to know if I get to go there on Monday. And I said, well, Mom, I've already paid for it for the month, so unless you say no, you're going every day. So, she came in, but she's enjoying it. She has made friends. She is much more verbal. She is much more active. She is not getting confused. She has a better sense of day and night circadian rhythms. So the nurse in me is really seeing those improvements. I know the underlying dementia is what it is. I'm aware it's not going to get better, but she is so much more functional than she was 3 months ago. And when I've shared with my physician colleagues what kind of things they do here, they're all going, oh my gosh, that's like really inexpensive neuro rehab. And I said, yes, it's neuro rehab optimizing all the function that she has, and on top of which she really, really enjoys it. So as long as she wants to keep coming, I'm going to keep bringing her here every day.
Kind of slide that neuro rehab in there with the socialization.
Oh, it is, and it's both components, because the socialization is important because my mom is not from here. She's from the Midwest, so she doesn't have friends here in town. She knows my friends, but her friends are 1,000 miles away. So she doesn't have a lot of other people to interact with except for me. And much as I think I'm entertaining, you need more than one person in your life. And so meeting other people her age who have some of the same stories and memories and activities, so they have a lot more in common. So she's meeting lots of people. And the nice thing is some people are here 5 days a week like she is. So she's made those bonds. But some people come 2 or 3 days a week. And so she gets to have a little bit of variety, that some patients are part-time, so you get enough difference that you're not like, oh, I see the same people every day. You're seeing some different people and some same people every day. So she's getting that piece of interactions and talking to people that aren't me. And she comes home at night and is sharing memories, some things I've heard before, but other things, stories I've never heard. She'll talk about I didn't realize she coached volleyball for CYO, the Catholic Youth Organization, when she was in high school. And she'll talk about having played volleyball, which I did not know she did. And one day they had a movie, and she didn't remember the name of the movie. She said it was some old cowboy movie, but that wasn't the point. It stimulated her memories of when she was a kid, they would pay 2 cents to get on the bus and go to the theater on a Saturday afternoon. So she would tell me stories about that time and growing up that I didn't know. So it's a combination of the activities I think are optimizing brain function and keeping her stimulated, and the personal interactions that are making friendships and human contact that are really important, that aren't always just me. And so I think both have been probably equally important in helping maximize her function.
How big of a relief, not really a load off, but how big of a relief has this been for you finding Clinic Club?
Oh, it's been awesome, because I was worried about leaving her alone. She obviously at that point was at risk for wandering away, and I didn't want her to fall. She's had 3 major falls with 7 fractures, so when she falls, she breaks things. So as a nurse, I'm very much afraid of her falling and staying on the floor. So one, I know she's safe. She could fall, because anyone could fall, but she'd be with other people for help. But in talking to her one day, and I mentioned what a relief it was, she said the same thing. She actually said, I feel really safe at Clear Day. I said, what do you mean, Mom? And I thought she was going to say risk of falling. And no, she said, well, what if I had a heart attack at your house or something? I would have been alone. And I never knew she was worried about that kind of medical problem and how she would get help if I was at work. So she feels safe that she's here, that if anything happened, there's people around who would activate help. I feel like she's safe. I don't have to worry that she's either isolated or alone, or that she could fall, or that she needed something, or and couldn't get that help. So I feel relief at work that my mom is safe and cared for. She feels safe because she's with other people if anything were to happen to her. So she's really enjoying it, and I can focus on work knowing my mom is okay. I just have to watch the time to leave work at a reasonable hour. I can't work as much overtime as I used to, because I need to get here before they close. But I get here in the evening and they have her ready to go, and we head home and I make dinner and we have the evening together. But I think we both are very relieved that she's safe. And I've shared with my brothers, when I did the initial web search, I sent the link to all three of my brothers and my sisters to let them check out the program. And then after the interview and tour, I told them everything that they said, and I told them the pricing and everything else. And then since then, I've talked to each of my siblings, and they've all noted that when they talk to her on the phone, she's clearer, she's brighter, she sounds happy. You know, because before she was getting almost, apathetic's not quite the right word, but much flatter. And now when they talk to her, she's like, well, I've got things to share now. I'm not just saying, well, I just sit here all day. She's got activities to share, things to talk about. So my brothers have all, and my sister have all commented that she's much more animated on the phone, and they can really tell that she's happy going there. And so they're all really, everyone in the family is really supportive that she goes here and that she's safe and taken care of.
So for you, and you just kind of mentioned it, Clear Day Clubs seems like it's worth the price of admission.
Oh, absolutely. It is absolutely worth it. When I priced out home care, because my mom would have needed probably 10 to 12 hours a day of care with my commute, would have been somewhere between $6,000 and $9,000 a month. And if I had to do that, I would have to make it happen. It wouldn't have been easy, but I'm not going to have my mom in a nursing home. But what I realized, again, as a nurse who used to be a nursing aide when I was in college, you might get a wonderful aide that really takes great care of her. Or I may get somebody that just sits there and watches TV or is on their phone. Or even if they're wonderful, there's only so many hours in a day you can talk to the same person and have anything left to say. Most of us would say that with our relationships, like you need something outside of the relationship to have something to talk about. So I thought that doesn't necessarily optimize any function. And then when I found this place, and I'm a private pay client, so she doesn't have, Medicare doesn't pay for this, and she doesn't have a military background to be VA. But the price I thought was incredibly reasonable. Is it cheap? No. But given the services that my mom is here 11 hours a day, 5 days a week, they provide 2 meals and a snack every day, plus all the activities, plus the friendships, and seeing the improvement, I think the price is worth every dime. I don't have an issue whatsoever paying that every month. As long as my mom is happy here, she will continue to come here every day.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about my background.
Yeah.
My background, my mother and my sister ultimately passed away from strokes. My mother had stroke.
Oh, yeah.
And she stayed at home.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the money to send her anywhere
Yeah.
else. She could have done Medicaid, but she
Mhm.
didn't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
She didn't have any dementia or anything
Yeah.
like that, but she stayed at home and didn't rehab and didn't socialize. And for me, I saw that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you think, I pay any amount of money now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
does that has to comfort you a little bit more, just
Mhm.
understanding what all's involved
Yeah.
in this. And have you seen, I guess, and part of it also is like, I'm the TV guy, I'm the dude that helps
Yeah.
with the movies and all that kind of stuff, and just helps with the trivia and that kind of thing. And that's the reason why I'm here. That's the reason why I'm here.
Okay.
But do you think that those programs really focus on the neuro, and how have you seen the improvement in that?
Oh, it's absolutely. I said I'm an oncology nurse, so I've been talking mostly to my oncology colleagues. So they're not neurology, but they're all, especially physicians. And when I've told them the activities, and everyone, including myself, have commented, these are all activities designed to stimulate both movement and brain function. So even like the physical exercises, there's a part of your brain that's reacting to the object coming at you, the distance, the hand-eye coordination. There's a part of your brain responding to the conversations that are happening. You have to make a movement, so it's actually making multiple connections in your brain. The trivia is both bringing up some current events in terms of checking brain function, but I've noticed some of the questions are from many, many years ago, because it's bringing back the long-term memories that people sustain when they have dementia. It was doing a combination of both to try to maximize function. My mom is not one to color much, and sometimes she'll comment like, oh, all these people color all day. I said, well, have you tried it? She's like, well, no. So I told her a story about a physician colleague I had at work that was off work for a couple of weeks taking care of his kids. and he thought he was doing activities with his kids coloring, and he looked up and his kids had long gone off to play, and he's still sitting there coloring and was fascinated, and he loved it. And he said, oh my gosh, this is so relaxing, and I'm just focused on color and spatial orientation. And so even something like coloring is making your brain focus on shapes, on hand-eye coordination, on color, so that has a purpose. My mom prefers the word puzzle, so she'll often bring word puzzles home and work on those. But no, all of the activities are both designed to optimize the short-term memory you do have, but drawing on the long-term memory that was there. And so I think it's that combination. The other thing is the physical activity. The day I did the tour, I thought it was kind of comical, because the activity that day is the clients all had pool noodles.
Okay.
And then staff were blowing up balloons. They had multiple balloons in the air that people were batting with the pool noodles. But one particular client was obviously a little bit more confused, and I looked and he was beating the balloon like this, trying to break the balloon. And I was like, oh, that's a little startling at first, but I looked around and everybody else just accepted that. Nobody criticized or got upset with him. A staff member just blew up an extra balloon to put into the air for everyone else and let him focus on what he needed to do. So I noticed the staff were really, really patient. The other clients just accepted, okay, you know, he can't help that, it's okay. And then the activity just moved on. But you're doing both movement, because they're moving around, batting it, or they're playing volleyball with a beach ball so they won't get hurt. But it's the combination of hand-eye movement, it's brain stimulation, it's color, it's movement, all of those things they use after strokes or other neuro rehab that helps maximize function. And so I, as a nurse, am looking at it as this is a darn cheap neuro rehab program. I mean, that's not what it's officially called, but there are so many elements of that that are meant to help the person's brain be at optimal function.
And that
So,
doesn't happen by
yeah.
happenstance. So,
Oh, no.
So everything that it's all tailored
Mhm.
for certain things. I mean,
Yeah.
we have caregivers
Mhm.
that said, okay, let's do this and let's do this, and then we've come in and they figured out how to
Yeah.
implement it with technology.
Yeah.
I mean, so in the long run, how beneficial do you think that's going to be for not only for your mother, but just for others that would be in our program?
Oh, excellent. In fact, I actually fully intend to tell her neurologist when we see him in September that this is an option if they have any patients in need of referrals, because that particular neurologist specializes in cognitive function, so that's his whole field, to let people know that this is available, because I think it's incredibly crucial. I said, before my mom came here, she was sundowning almost every night. It started off 1 or 2 days a week, but it became every night. And I thought it was odd, because being a nurse for 38 years, I thought I was very well versed in dementia. But I've realized that as a nurse, I've mostly seen advanced dementia. I've seen people hospitalized out of nursing homes or with around-the-clock care, so I had an expectation of what I was going to see. I was wrong, because most of her confusion was location-related. Is where is the bedroom? Where is the bathroom? Where are we going to sleep tonight? Are we going to go back to that place we were living at last night? So it was more of a sense of disorientation to place, but she knew people and she knew things. So I thought that was very atypical, but after doing more research on dementia, I'm realizing that's actually classic for mild dementia, is that location or place goes first. So it started off 1 or 2 days a week, and then it was every night. She didn't have the symptoms you often see in more advanced care. She was never irritable or angry or hitting or any of that. My mom is very pleasant at all the time. But it was just more puzzled, like, where are we going to sleep tonight? Are we going to drive back to where we stayed? All these places we've been at look alike. And I'm like, well, we haven't been at multiple places. We've been here. And she said, no, I've been rotating houses. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to argue the point, but we haven't. And so then I said, then she had, when we went back to the Midwest on a visit, is when she walked out of the house and fell, but it was 34 degrees out. So she laid outside on the cement for 5 hours. And by the time I found her, she was minimally responsive, incoherent. I had to call 911. They admitted her to the hospital. And when she went to the ER, they couldn't even record a temperature. And as a medical person, I know we can record down to below 89. So whatever her temperature was unmeasurable. And after 2 hours and what's called a bear hugger, it's like a warm air mattress around her, she was warmed up to 89 degrees. So had she been out there much longer, she probably would have died. And to think I would have lost my mom when I was only, 300 or 400 feet away, because she only went out the back door and went maybe 20 feet before she fell. But I was asleep and didn't hear her. And then after that happened, I found out from a neighbor, she had wandered out of the house during the day when I was at work, and it never occurred to my neighbor to tell me. She found my mother without her walker 5 houses away. She walked her back to my house and never said a word. And I thought, oh my God, had I known that, I would have reacted even sooner. Because my mom was safe, she was fine, she's always been very independent. But that made me realize I can't risk that she could wander away, either get lost or in her case fall and get injured, and how to make sure I keep her safe. And she wanted to feel safe. And so coming here makes her feel safe. I feel very safe. Side note, what I also like is the staff really focus on special days, like holidays. I've noticed they have a Christmas tree in the front and they decorate it for every different event. They'll decorate the tables with tablecloths. And the first event they had since I brought my mom was Mother's Day. And we were brand new, so we only maybe our first week here, I think. And so the staff had said in passing, oh, I'm so sorry, but because you're new, you didn't get the message ahead of time, but we're gonna do this Mother's Day luncheon. And they invited me, and I thought, okay, probably I'm not gonna make it. I work an hour away. So I kind of said, thank you very much, figured I wasn't gonna be here. But when I dropped my mom off that morning, they had a row of tables arranged with tablecloths, they had place settings, they had decorations on the table, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is a big event. I have to be here. So I told my boss I'm taking some vacation day time and I'm gonna come back. And it was great. They did it, they honored all the mothers that were here. And not every family came, but a number of family members came to celebrate those moms. And then I found they did a Father's Day poker tournament. And they did a 4th of July celebration and Memorial Day celebration. So on one hand, my mom will say, it's just a minor holiday. Like, yeah, it is a minor holiday. I've never celebrated Memorial Day before. But the nice thing is it marks the days. It makes days special so that every day doesn't blend together. So it's still really nice when you see they did a luau day. So everybody had their little Hawaiian leis, and they had the colored tablecloths in tropical colors. So they try to do things to make things special. So even though my mom will roll her eyes and say, like, oh, they did whatever, at the same time I can tell she really enjoys it. And I enjoy seeing that the staff are making that extra effort, trying to make days special for people when they're here, so.
So, well, you have a nursing background, so
I do.
you have the therapy thing, but one of the things that we're trying to do, or we're not trying, we're going to do is help implement to help people with a call-in line or whatever after hours. How beneficial do you think that could be? Because, I mean, people have, you even being a nurse have questions. How beneficial do you think that could be?
Oh, I think that's a great service. I don't know that I personally need it yet because my mom is doing really well in the evenings, and since I am a nurse, I take care of her, and I don't need to ask the medication questions or is this normal behavior questions. So far I haven't had a need, but it's really nice to know it's there if or when that time comes. But I think for people who don't have a medical background, that's going to be such an awesome service because you do get exhausted as a caregiver. You can be very stressed, you don't know what's normal or not, or you just need to vent to someone. You know, again, not with my mother, she's not that severe yet, but having taken care of dementia people, patients with dementia, it's exhausting for families. And sometimes you need somebody to vent to so that you don't lose your temper, so you don't yell or scream, so you don't decide you have to put your parent in a nursing home because you just can't cope anymore. So I think it's a really valuable service for people, whether they need it in that moment or not, but to know it's there, to know they have a relief valve, to talk to somebody, to get questions answered without having to call, make an appointment, wait a month to see their doctor, at which point that crisis is over. You've either put your mother in a nursing home or it's gone away. But you're looking for options and resources because 24/7 caregiving is exhausting. And we see that in hospice, we see it in palliative care, we see it in dementia, that especially when you're the sandwich generation taking care of kids and parents, and you don't have a lot of bandwidth left, and now you've got to spend this time trying to be patient, trying to go over things, and you don't want to get frustrated or upset, but it's human nature. And so I think having someone you can call and either give you advice or listen or give you recommendations for services or other options to help you is just going to be invaluable. And I've actually told the center that they need to expand. I said, this works great for me, it's off Bandera Road, and I live 6 miles from here. So this is ideal for me. But if this was on the south side of town or the far north side of town, I don't know that I could make it happen and still get to work. And so I keep hoping y'all will keep expanding and provide that service to other people, because I think it's huge. There is a Via Bus service that I see a lot of the clients take, so it's really great to see people get dropped off on the handicap service. I talked to my mom about that, and so far she's like, don't want to do that. As long as you're willing to take me, I want to go. And as I've driven her in the morning, she'll say, oh my God, traffic is awful. Do you have to go through this just for me? I'm like, nope, this is my daily commute. I would sit here in this traffic whether you were with me or not. So we drive in, I drop her off, and then I just get up onto the highway and head to work. But I'm hoping that as you expand, I heard you're going to expand to New Braunfels and Corpus. I think that's awesome. I'm hoping it's successful, that you continue to expand your services, because I think having someplace close enough to home that you can feasibly do it. If your spouse is retired and you're the caregiver, it might not be such a problem to bring somebody for the day and go home. But if you're still a working adult child, it can be really hard if you had to drive an hour to take somebody and then make it to work and come back. So I think having additional centers, I'm hoping and praying you guys are successful. I'm going to do my part. I said I'm already going to talk to her neurologist to say, hey, are you all aware the service is here? I talk to people at work and say, hey, if you know of anybody in need, this has been great. I have 2 neighbors who have dementia. One was too severe. She needed 24/7 around-the-clock care and just passed away a couple weeks ago. But the other is much earlier, and I've talked to his wife, and she really wants him to come, but so far with his dementia, he's a really intelligent man, and he will not go see his friends because he doesn't want them to see him not at his peak, but he won't yet go out in public. So he is becoming more and more isolated and losing function because of that. So I keep encouraging her to say, he doesn't have to go full time. You can do 2 days a week. You can do 3 days a week. It works for my mom to do 5, but it doesn't have to be every single day, both in terms of price and the person's need and the commute. They're really good. Jake is great if I just give him a heads up what I need, mom's going to be late this day or not come this day or whatever. The staff have been really, really flexible. So there are options depending on, if money is an object, because obviously no one has endless money. But I think for the services my mom is getting, the price is very, very fair. If that's beyond someone's need, then maybe you do the part-time up to 3 days a week and at least get some stimulation for your loved one and some care and help, and give yourself some mental health and physical relief to be able to maintain your time as a caregiver. So like you mentioned, your mom having had strokes, even if you couldn't have afforded full-time, if you could have brought her 2 or 3 days a week to help her and to give that family a break, you would have then felt more energized when you were taking care of her. So I think it is both, it helps me re-energize and be better as a caregiver, and it helps her in terms of optimizing her function and giving her friends and people who are not judging, because everyone's in the same boat. No one's stepping back saying, oh, you have this health problem, or oh, you have this capability. Everyone's in that same boat, so nobody's making any judgments, nobody's criticizing each other. There's no embarrassment about, oh, this person has dementia. You're not in that position. Everybody's there kind of, I think I've seen, the nurse in me keeps wondering people's diagnosis, but under HIPAA I can't ask. But I've wondered, is this person, do they have dementia or do they have head injury or do they have, and none of my business, it's just my intellectual curiosity, because I see a little bit of difference in people's behavior. But the nice thing is people are accepting about it. I see my neighbor who's now isolated himself and rarely leaves their house because he doesn't want his friends to know he has that diagnosis. But in doing that, he's really hurting himself. And I'm seeing him go down. So I keep hoping, because I know for them money is not an object, but it's more a matter of his pride. So I keep hoping that at some point they'll come take a tour and see the facility and spend time and talk to clients. I said, that really helped me, because I thought you always get the sales pitch from somebody who says, here's what we offer. But when I interviewed clients, and it wasn't like an interview. They said, hey, you're welcome to hang out and talk to people, and people wanted to talk to me. I was a new face. And so I talked to a number of clients, and every single person told me how long they got to come here. I've been here for 6 months or a year, and how much they get to come. And every one of them would tell me how much they enjoyed being here, that they value this. And that meant more to me than the sales pitches, to hear the people who are here are finding it beneficial and they're happy. They're not saying, yeah, my daughter needs me to be here so she can go to work, or my spouse needs a break from me, or my spouse is exhausted. Nobody said anything negative about why they're here. Everyone would say, like one particular gentleman told me that he and his wife are retired and most of his neighborhood works. There aren't people to interact with in their neighborhood. And he said, if I stay home, my wife will give me a honey-do list. So I come to the center and I get to have my time playing cards with the other guys. We play poker, we play dominoes. He has a good time, and then he gets to go home, and part of the time he has his honey-do list, and part of the time he gets to be here. So, his motivation was, this is my time to interact with people, because in my home, I don't have anyone to interact with. And that kind of, so I've had several people tell their stories, and there's a lot of military retirees or military veterans here, and as a military retiree myself, I've been chatting with them about their backgrounds and their time in the military, and making that bond. So it was really neat talking to people, and every one of them saying, I get to come here this number of days a week, and I hope I get to keep coming here. And now my mom is doing that same thing. Do I get to go there? And so it's been nice to see how happy she is. So.